Hey guys, thank you for joining me on another anatomy and physiology video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the superficial chest muscles or the pectoral region. So in the previous video, we looked at the muscles that if you can kind of puff your chest out, when you puff your chest out, you should feel the posterior muscles, the back muscles, the upper back muscles flex, contract, right? So we talked about the rhomboids, the latissimus dorsi, and the trapezius muscles. Well, now, if you have your chest puffed out, now this time sink your chest in, and your shoulders should kind of move forward, right? All right, so that now we're looking at the muscles that kind of cause that movement, the pectoralis region muscles. So there's three major muscles that we're going to discuss. The last two are muscles that attach to the scapula, and the first one is one that attaches itself to the humerus, and that's the pectoralis major. Now, if you take a look at the pectoralis major, it's a massive muscle in the front. Arnold Schwarzenegger is famous for his huge, his massive pectorals back in his bodybuilding days. And this is a large convergent muscle, and you see that it's converging. Now, actually, before we get to the converging part, let's take a look at the part where it originates, okay? The origin of the muscle, which is essentially the entire sternum, okay? So we're talking about the manubrium, the body of the sternum, and for some people, depending on your genetics, the xiphoid process. And also your clavicle, okay? So for like the medial half of the clavicle, your pectoral muscle is attached to that. In addition to that, actually, just underneath or just lateral to the body of the sternum, you also have the pectoral muscle that attaches to the first 6 ribs. All right, and so as I mentioned before, you see that it kind of converges, right? So all that muscle mass converges and it wraps around the humerus, and it attaches to the lateral aspect of the intertubercular sulcus. Right. So if you're kind of imagining the humerus as a person is in the anatomical position, so it's just lateral. So if you can kind of draw a line down the middle of the humerus, you have the greater tubercle and the lesser tubercle, and you draw a line down the humerus, it's just lateral to that. So if you're paying attention to the fibers of the muscle, they're kind of running east and west. So when that muscle contracts, it causes the humerus to rotate medially. And this is the pushing motion that we're also used to. So you kind of flex your hands, you extend your hands out, put yourself right against up a wall, and then just push out. And that's the motion that the pectoralis major initiates by causing the humerus to move medially, to rotate medially. Now, so just underneath the pectoralis major, you have another major muscle. And so this is the second one, and this one's attached to the scapula, as I mentioned before. This is a pectoralis minor. So anytime that you have a major, kind of like the rhomboideus major, you have also a minor, a smaller muscle, a smaller version of that. Now, with this particular one, this one also attaches to the ribs, but it only attaches to ribs 3 through 5. Okay, so that's the point of origin, and then it inserts at the coracoid process of the scapula. So with that motion, that when that muscle contracts, it helps to move the scapula forward. So one of the ways to kind of feel that muscle move is if you kind of put your hands in front of you and do a diamond shape. Okay, so do a diamond shape with your hands and move your hands and push them forward. Keeping your hands in that diamond shape, you'll feel the scapula move forward as you move your hands forward like that. Or just kind of do a diamond push-up. That's the pectoralis minor that's causing the scapula to move forward. Okay, because remember, this is a muscle that's not, now in conjunction with your pectoralis minor, you're also working the major, right? That's responsible for the movement of the humerus, but the minor is responsible for moving and stabilizing the scapula. Okay, so now one of the other thing to notice here is the fiber direction, right? So the major is east-west, right? And the pectoralis minor is more of a north-south, and it's kind of at an angle. It's about a 45-degree angle that these fibers are running in. So when this muscle contracts, think of picking up a suitcase. That's a good example of the motion that the contraction of this muscle creates. So it's kind of a lifting motion, if you will. It's because of the direction of the muscle fibers. All right, so last but not least, we have the serratus anterior. Now, this muscle is not commonly associated with arm movement, but the serratus anterior, these are typically associated with like abdominals and such, but these are responsible for our scapular movement. So these also play a very major role in forward and reaching forward, or a pushing action. So when you look at the origin of these of this muscle, it's essentially attached to every single rib on the anterior aspect of the chest cavity. And all these muscles, you'll notice that all these muscles are kind of converging and they're wrapping around the thoracic cage, and they insert at the medial border of the scapula. So if I turn around the body here and I look at the scapula and I see the medial border, now I don't actually see where they're inserting, but if I kind of follow the line of the medial border of the scapula, all the serratus anterior are attached. They kind of line that medial border, but it's just on the other side of what I'm showing you right there. And so paying attention again to the fiber directions, right, to the direction of the fibers. So when they contract, so keep in mind that the muscles basically have one job, is that they shorten and they elongate, right? So when they shorten, they're contracted. So pretend like you're, to kind of get a sense of what the serratus anterior are doing, pretend like you're flapping your scapulas, like if they were wings. Okay, so in doing that action, that flapping action, you're if you're really kind of doing a mind-muscle connection there, you should kind of get a sense. And again, this is a little tricky because again, the serratus anterior are muscles that are not a major group per se, or at least a major group that we associate with this kind of movement. But that's the movement that the serratus anterior create by their contractions. Okay, guys, so that does it for the superficial chest muscles. I hope you guys learned something new, and thanks for listening and watching, and good luck in your studying.